Safety Subcommittee meeting. Madam Secretary, call the roll. Present.
Here.
Absent.
The first item on our agenda tonight is informational item, is security guard training. Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Barb. Adam?
I'm sorry, can you guys restart? Your mic is too high.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is March 28th, 2024. This is a Safety Subcommittee meeting. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Ms. Gresham?
Present.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
Attorney Murphy? Absent.
The first item on our agenda, informational item, is security guard training. Superintendent Warwick.
I'll bring up Adam Fenn, Director of Safety and Security.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks, Adam.
So I can give you an overview of what we do for the security guard trainings yearly. Obviously, if you have any questions pertaining to something specific, let me know. But our security guards, who there are 42 of dispersed throughout the schools, get a yearly training with what was STS Consulting, a local vendor that actually caters the training to our exact needs, what we need for the department. We sit down twice a year and we kind of go over the department needs and the district needs, and they cater it specifically to what we need. A lot of trainings are very generic. They come in and train on things that might not pertain to schools. So this is a very unique training. It's once a year. Every August we do it. We get everybody in person together, usually done at Putnam. The vendor has since disbanded his business. He's retiring, but he's going to stay on for us and continue to do the trainings as personal. We're making him a vendor for us, and he actually brings in FBI, Springfield Police, State Police. They do different sections of the training. You know, I don't want to get into too many specifics of that training, what they do with the FBI and the police, but we cover everything. You know, we cover everything from top to bottom that we can think of as it pertains to schools. Our guards are also all CPR first aid trained. We do on-site visits from our department, myself, Joe Griffin, and Ray Carter now. Obviously used to be Tristan Rwana, who left, but we do on-site visits weekly with the guards to make sure they're up to date on everything that they need to do. We do a separate training yearly for all the guards for search procedures to make sure that they're properly searching, properly doing metal detector searches, and that is soon to be, switching over to the Evolve artificial intelligence, which we actually successfully rolled out today at SciTech. So now we have 3 of them up and running. So we're kind of pivoting. It's going to be kind of a hybrid. Some schools using metal detectors still, some using Evolve, until we're totally transitioned over. And obviously they were a big part of our active shooter drill that we did at SciTech over the summer. So they were intimately involved in that. So that's what we give them for training. Obviously, all of our resources are available to all staff, but also our security guards on our website, all of our protocols, everything that we do. And we try to send as many emails out, if not weekly, monthly, to the guards, updating them, on any sort of updates or protocols. So as far as training for the security guards, that's what we do.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
So is there a specific manual that they go by or that they read or refer to?
So we've created a guard training packet in our department that we give to all the new hires that gives them all the pertinent information, such as, again, search procedures, different things we're adding as we go. So as we add, the radios to it and Evolve to it, the door alarm systems, we update it every year and then we'll send it out. We'll send the pertinent information out, but the new hires, as well as on-the-job training when they get brought on, they get that new hire packet. It teaches them everything from how to use the cameras to how to properly search.
All right. So I know you did say someone does the training. I didn't hear that name.
It's a company called STS Consulting. But again, he's retiring, so...
STS?
STS. T is in Tom.
All right. Are they local?
Yep, he's a local vendor. He works for the sheriff's department, but he's also a paramedic, so he's got a lot of different training. But again, he brings in outside entities to assist with the training. But again, he's closing his business officially, but he's going to stay on for us in a capacity to be able to still do the yearly training.
So do we have any openings, security guard openings now?
Right now, actually, I just put through this afternoon, we had 2 part-time openings, and I just put them through, so if they maintain through the hiring process, we'll be completely filled. 42 positions.
How many?
42.
Position open?
No. We have 42 guards in the district.
Okay.
They're all filled as of this afternoon.
Oh, they're all
Yeah.
filled?
Yeah.
Okay. So when they're hired, they go through this manual within what? They have to do it within 30 days or within?
No, we give it to them upon hire so they can read over it as they're starting, but they're also getting the on-the-job training when they get started. The other security guards in the building, obviously, but we also go out. So if we have a new hire starting Monday, myself, Joe, or Ray from our department will be physically at the school with them, training them how to properly search, what their day looks like, where they're supposed to be, if there's 2 guards, who goes where at what times. And then again, they review the training manual, and we obviously go and answer questions and we touch base with them as much as possible until they're 100% comfortable. We don't let them work the shift until they're 100% comfortable working by themselves.
All right. Do they get a certificate after they went?
No, we don't have a certificate or
No
anything,
certificate
no.
after they've
No.
gone through the training? No?
No.
Oh. Okay. Any questions? Josiah, anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The next item is lockdown procedures. Superintendent Warwick, okay.
Adam?
Yeah, so I guess I would ask, what are you looking for specifically as far as our lockdown protocols? What do you want me to?
All right. Is there a manual for that to follow?
Yes, yep, very.
So does all the staff read that manual?
Yep, so all staff get that email through, our yearly memos go out every year in September, right at the beginning of the year. That's included in the yearly memos. We send them out to the principals to distribute to their staff multiple times a year. We do 2 lockdown drills at every school every year. When we notify the schools that we're going to be doing that, we include the information in that email. It all lives on our MySPS website. Everything is there, listed, broken down for them to get at any point. So we disseminate the information as best and as much as we can. We go to extended days. We go to their PD days to educate upon request. So if a school asks us to come out and talk to their staff in person, we do that. So we attack it from all angles. We try to get it out there every way that we possibly can.
All right.
Yeah.
So once they read the lockdown procedure manual, right? Do they sign off on that, or how does that?
No, there's no sign-off sheet for it. I mean, we're trying to incorporate it in the hiring process as well. So when they're hired, they're given it, and every new hire will get the copy of what they're supposed to get, that they get when they get to the school. They're provided for it. But we want to make sure they're right out of the gate, even before they start, they're given that information. So again, there's no sign-off for it, but
So how do we keep a record that they've read the information?
well, we don't keep track that all of the 5,000 employees have read it, but we disseminate it as much as possible, as frequently as possible, in every route that we possibly can. So, again, when we do lockdown drills, we send it out via email to the principals, who then send it to all their staff. It lives all the time on our MySPS website, so all staff members have access to that at any point. All of our protocols are on there. We have videos on there. We have the SPS protocols for the 3 different types of lockdowns. We have information on run, hide, fight on there. All of the different things that we educate them on it also lives on our website. So they're free to go there at any point to look at it, and they're all aware of that. We tell them that.
All right.
You and your central office staff monitor lockdown drills at every school twice a year.
Yeah, we
to make
conduct
sure
the
people
lockdown
follow
drills
the
twice a
protocols.
year at every school, so we conduct those in conjunction with the police.
Right.
So we make sure those are done as well. We're wrapping those up now. We already have done the first round in the fall, and we always wrap it up in the spring and do the second round.
Right. So is that part of professional development? Is that part of the training?
Oh, no, well,
No?
we actually do the lockdown drills with all the students in the building.
With all the students in
So
the
it's a
building.
live drill, yeah.
So my question is, with the manual, right? So each staff person is supposed to read that, right?
Yeah, it's a one-sheeter that goes over the protocols for a lockdown, the 3 different types of lockdowns. And again, I know that the schools are very good about educating their staff in summer PDs. They all have a portion on it. And, we can't, we're a 3-person department, so we can't get to 70 schools, during their extended days and PD days, but we make the biggest effort we can to offer our services. If somebody wants to have us come out for an extended day or a PD day, we physically go to the school and we talk to their staff. But there's just not enough extended days and PD days in a school year for us to get out to every school. So we rely heavily on, the administration, obviously, to relay that information to their staff.
So where's this manual kept? Is it in the office?
Yeah, every staff member should have a copy. A lot of them have it hanging up in their classrooms. But, there is it lives on our MySPS website that they all have access to at any time. And also there's our Be Safe book, our emergency operation procedures are located in the main office, and there's a copy of it in there as well. So if somebody wanted to physically go open a book, it's in there. But the most readily available source is our MySPS website. That's where all of our safety and security information lives.
Right. There's a little feedback. I can't really hear you that well, but yeah. So my question is, how do we know that each staff has read this manual and know the procedure and what to follow?
I can't answer that every single staff member has been personally delivered a copy of it, but again, we try to attack it in every aspect that we can from our office. Every way to distribute the information that we have, everything available, we do. And again, we rely heavily on the schools to educate their staff on the protocols. So we send it out, again, September 1st, our yearly memos go out to the principals. They distribute that to all their staff. They cover it in their PD days. They cover it in their extended days. And again, that information, and we try to make this readily known and available like all the other resources on MySPS, everything is on our MySPS website. So they can go there at any point. We can certainly look at a way to track that everybody has reviewed this. We can certainly talk to IT or something to see if we can, try to come up with something where they have to acknowledge that they've read it.
Right.
But at this point right now, that's not in place.
I think moving forward, that might be a good idea, a plan of knowing that each staff has read this procedure and know what to do if the event should happen, that there's a lockdown, that they know exactly what to do.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But twice a year, you go out and review, when everyone's participating in the drill, you actually monitor it. So again, they're making sure they're following all the protocols.
So I'll say this, I've been here 10 years, and when we first came in and started doing these drills, you would make an announcement and nobody did anything. And now it's very rare that we find one door unlocked in a school. So everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. Again, they're educated from every direction on it.
Right.
The district has come so far in what we're doing, and again, that's obviously due to all of your support. Again, when we started 10 years ago, the doors didn't lock in most of the classrooms, so it's very rare when we make these announcements, and again, the principals can attest to this too, it's very rare when we find one person out of place doing something they're not supposed to do. They take it very, very seriously, and every school does a great job.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gresham, and thank you, Adam, for your overview. Are there different types of lockdown drills?
So we only drill for an intruder lockdown, which would be, worst case scenario inside a building. Obviously, everybody thinks active shooter, but we don't drill for a building lockdown or a perimeter lockdown. The reality is, we put our buildings in perimeter lockdown very, very frequently. Because of police activity in the area. Anything going on in the area that's police related, we always put the building in lockdown, just, perimeter lockdown just in case. And I want to also add, we consider our buildings secure facilities. We consider our buildings always on lockdown. There should never be an open door, unlocked, prop door, ever. So our buildings are always on a lockdown of sorts. A perimeter lockdown, when it's announced, is more of an enhanced way to let everybody know, listen, something's going on outside the building, everyone stay put, we're not letting anybody in, we're not letting anybody out until the police clear us. Because we don't clear that, the police do. It's a police matter, we let them clear it. So we don't drill for perimeter lockdown and building lockdown. We educate on those, and we do them enough in the schools where I think every school probably has been put on a perimeter lockdown at some point this year just for something going on in the area. But the intruder lockdowns are what we drill for.
I have a follow-up question, Ms. Gresham.
Yes.
So I know that when you provided us a report to the Safety Committee, if it was last week or the week prior to that, you had mentioned, and specifically, that the schools, as it pertains to the incident at SciTech, were all in a perimeter lockdown. Is that correct?
Yes, they were all in a perimeter lockdown once it was determined what the actual situation was.
So when you say all schools, STEM, Putnam, and SciTech, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is, you said that the building lockdown is when there's an intruder. So my question is, the moment that folks understood that they were external entities through that door, your line of logic would suggest to me that that's a building lockdown, not a perimeter lockdown.
Correct. It would have been a building lockdown, but by the time that the decision was made and anybody realized what was actually occurring, they had fled the scene. And credit to Principal Aleem for making that decision within 17 seconds of the incident occurring. He recognized that they were gone and off property and put his building in a perimeter lockdown, knowing that they were off scene and the police were on scene. So, that was a decision that was made very quickly. If the situation warranted that the shooter or the assailant, anybody in our buildings, went and fled inside the building, absolutely, that would have been an intruder lockdown because there would have been an intruder inside the building. So he was able to make that decision very quickly, knowing that they had fled out of the building immediately, and as they were calling the lockdown, they called for a perimeter lockdown because he had left, and they didn't want anybody to leave the building because at that point they knew they had fled, they know they got in a vehicle, but they didn't want anybody to leave until the police cleared it.
No, that makes sense. Ms. Gresham, if I may, I have a couple follow-up questions.
Yes.
So, setting aside the incident at SciTech, but just taking it from a policy standpoint, Adam, the second that we have any external entity come in to one of our school buildings, that should trigger, according to what you've provided testimony to us this afternoon, a building lockdown. Is that correct?
Depending on the situation, if that person is entering the building and they are immediately starting to shoot or something is going on, they're brandishing a weapon, that would definitely be an intruder lockdown. We would want people to execute the run, hide, fight plan and, intruder lockdown. A building lockdown, a good example of that would be a very angry parent. Might not be exhibiting showing a weapon, might not be violent at that point, but a very angry parent who was in the office and might have made their way through the building looking for their child or somebody, you would put the building in a building lockdown, which would mean, just get everybody out of the hallways, get everybody into the classrooms. Another example of a building lockdown would be a medical issue, where if you're having a medical issue in the middle of the hallway, you wouldn't want anybody walking in on that. You would want to keep the privacy. You would want to keep the halls clear. You would put everybody in a building lockdown. It wouldn't necessarily prompt an intruder lockdown to where we needed to either flee or lock ourselves in and barricade our doors. So there are differences in those types, but anytime there's somebody being violent in a building, especially if they brandished a weapon, it would be an automatic intruder lockdown.
Okay. Why didn't that happen?
So again, they were outside and they were responding to a potential fight. Again, that was the original radio call that went out. By the time they breached the door, got in the school, in those seconds that they were in the school, they were the people that were responding were trying to de-escalate that situation, break up the fight, and get people out. Once everything occurred, they were able to deduce that they needed to be in a perimeter lockdown at that point because he fled. If that individual stayed in the building and they were able to get to their radios and put the building, then at that point, yes, the recommendation would be they're in the building, put it on an intruder lockdown. But when the incident happened so quickly, they were in, they were out, they were able to identify that they immediately fled and left property. So that's, again, why it was on perimeter lockdown. If they came in the building unattended, they were found in there, he was walking around with a weapon, that would prompt an intruder lockdown. After the fight, if he had fled up the stairs into the building instead of out the door, that would have been an intruder lockdown. But at that point, they were able to identify that they had fled, put it in a perimeter lockdown, and waited for the police to clear it.
I guess I'm having a little bit issue understanding the logical sequence on it. And again, my colleagues and I, one, we're not practitioners. We rely on you and Principal Aleem and so many other people on this side of it. And this happened in seconds, to your point in testimony. I mean, we're not here to say shoulda, coulda, woulda, done this, that, or the other. But I think it's important. Is that the logical cadence for us in terms of a policy? Because what you're saying is if someone breaches a door, because they violently breached the door based on your testimony a week ago, that the first, to your point, what you're saying is to just everybody hands on deck, let's do whatever has to get done, and only then, you have somebody in the building that's not supposed to be there, and only then, when we get a chance, let's notify the school community that, and the surrounding school communities or that particular school where we have a couple thousand people in the vicinity, even though it was a 17-second or 27-second incident. Does that make sense where I'm, that
No,
angle that I'm
I
providing
understand
to you?
I understand exactly what you're saying, right? And you could prepare for these situations and educate and drill and do mass drills with the police and the state police and educate the staff and do 10 lockdown drills a year if we could. But when the rubber hits the road and something like this actually occurs, it's very difficult to sit back and say we should have or this could happen. And could things have gone better, and could things have, could we work on things, and could things be done better the next time? I mean, absolutely. I don't think anybody is saying any differently there. But I think for what they were dealing with at the time and how they reacted to it, I think it was appropriate. And I think that, again, I think if this lasted any longer and they had more staff, maybe with radios and more, able to analyze that situation, maybe he would have put it on a building lockdown until they had left the building. But again, I'm just going off of what occurred that day, and I think what was done was appropriate because they were able to quickly identify that he had left property.
Yeah, I hear that. Ms. Gresham, may I proceed on this item?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. My follow-up question to you, Adam, is how are all of you notified when there's something like this in one of the schools?
So a lot of times, obviously this is a first, right, for all of us, but a lot of times when incidents are going on, say outside the school, we find out about it before anybody. We'll get the call directly from the police. I have a police radio that I can hear what's going on in the city. I can hear all the police calls. I can hear all I can hear all of that. So we're able to prompt them to go into a perimeter lockdown before they might even know something's happening. Sometimes they hear something outside. They're informed. So they'll put the building in perimeter lockdown and then call us. There's a lot of different avenues to get that information, but if there's something going on inside the building, normally it's get your police involved, administration involved, then let us know that it's going on. Obviously, the police should be the first call to handle something like that, but we have such a good back and forth with the police, especially our Quebec unit and our sergeant. I mean, we talk 50 times a day about things that are going on, and they're great to where if I maybe don't have my radio on and I'm in a meeting, or Joe's in a meeting, or somebody's in a meeting, they call immediately and they say, hey, this just happened. Great example, 2 weeks ago, it was a few days before SciTech, there was shots fired outside of Brookings School. We were immediately notified by the police and real-time crime, who was able to get on those exterior cameras. They immediately got the shooter, they immediately got the person that was being shot at. They were able to respond, they knew what direction they went in, and they were able to put the building in a perimeter lockdown. The police did immediately before we even knew about it, because they were able to access that and understood what happened. I mean, within seconds, from the call going out, they were right on it and they saw it almost 20 to 30 seconds after it happened. And then we got that phone call that, hey, we just put Brookings in a perimeter lockdown, and then we notify superintendent and Azelle and Kim and anybody else that would need to be notified. So the information isn't lacking, I'll tell you that. It comes in from a million different angles. And, you know, it's quite often that the school knows before we do what's happening, because they're there. So if they hear a possible gunshot outside or there's something happening, they're the ones that would prompt the lockdown.
All right. Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
if I may indulge you, could we recognize Principal Aline? Would you like to add to this?
Adam, you do an amazing job. I don't know if maybe, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody officially in regards to this, so I don't know if maybe I can help answer some of the questions that Adam is fielding right now, but that's what I'm here for.
Okay.
We're talking about lockdown drills, and I understand that the policy in trying to identify which is more appropriate from a policy language standpoint, because that's very important. But I was there. I was in the moment, and based on my experience, my training, and working with, you know, Adam in the Office of Safety and Security, it's my opinion that a lockdown was called effectively and successfully to ensure the safety of approximately 1,200 people. I mean, that's what happened in real time. I know there's been a lot of discussion as to, like, what kind of lockdown it was, perimeter, building, and I understand that given this situation, it's important to clarify those terms so that we all have a better understanding. But myself and my team responded to an incident that we all hope never happens again. And with that said, my team, in their response, were able to protect and maintain the safety of everybody at the High School of Science and Technology. And in that moment, unbeknownst to everybody who was there, put themselves in a situation where they were willing to take a bullet to ensure the safety of our children. I couldn't be prouder as a building principal. I couldn't be prouder as a you know, a contributing member of Springfield Public Schools that happened. And that only happened based on our training and the ability to assess the situation in real time. You know, there were intruders who made their way into the building. In that moment, my team responded and were able to protect everybody. As a result of their swift action, the intruders fled the scene. In the matter of, like Adam referenced, and we all talked about, in a matter of seconds, with me responding to that incident, I got on the phone with Kim, letting her know immediately that we're not 100% sure what is going on in the moment, because it was chaotic. I did say to her, there is potentially a firearm involved. I am letting you know that I'm putting the building in lockdown. I got on the loudspeaker, I made the announcement, and this was at approximately 2:11 p.m., that went on the loudspeaker, and I said, attention, we are right now in perimeter lockdown. Teachers, I am asking you to keep students in the classroom until I get back on, and alert you that it is safe. It is safe. The building is safe. I then left my office, again, ran down to further assess what was going on. By then, obviously, we had the cavalry had arrived, all of Springfield Police Department, it looked like. I then noticed it was around 2:15. The bells were going to ring for dismissal, and action had to happen again. So I got back on, informed the entire faculty that we are going to continue to be in lockdown. I do know the bell is going to ring. Please hold students in the classroom until I get back on and announce that it is safe to dismiss accordingly. So from about 2:15 to 2:30, with the help of many, and with the direction of the police department, we were able to clear and we were able to hold the buses, and students left the building at approximately, I think, 2:32, give or take a minute, 2:33, and 1,100, approximately 1,100 students went home safely. Why I know that was effective and successful is because at that close at dismissal, in all honesty, at around 2:15 on most days, there are a number of students in the hall already making their way to catch their buses to get a head start, because missing a bus is a big deal in our city. Those of you who were in the building, you could hear a mouse in the building because it was quiet, it was clear, it was safe. That couldn't happen. That couldn't happen in real time if not only myself, not only that couldn't have happened if not only myself and the teachers were knowledgeable of the proper protocols and action that has to happen when a lockdown is called. And that's what happened. I know we have to clarify and work as a team to potentially redefine and make maybe some terminology a little bit clearer. But at the same time, you know, we prepare for these things, we train for these things, but when they actually happen, you're now in a moment of execution. We executed. The High School of Science and Technology executed and kept our children safe. That's what happened.
Ms. Gresham, if I may.
Yeah.
Principal Lalim, are there any takeaways that you have? I mean, being on the ground during this, that you could share with us as a body? What are the takeaways? I know that leaders are always looking on how to do improvement, and I'm sure that you assessed everything in the past couple of weeks. What are your takeaways as a principal?
Just a point of order. I don't know that we should talk about things that you might do differently in a public meeting. I think that's probably left to private session. These are security issues that we're talking about, just to be on the safe side. Because it could end up becoming policy. I don't think these are not things we typically do in a public session. I'm sorry, I'm not a member of the meeting, but I was just afraid we might venture into.
My summary of events.
Is Attorney Phelps, is she on?
I am. There is an investigation.
Attorney Phelps is on.
Thank you. There is an investigation going on.
You must be muted. We can't hear you, Attorney Phelps.
There is an investigation going on, and those are the issues that our outside justices are looking into to make recommendations. And so I would suggest that let the investigation play out, and a report will be forthcoming once everyone has been interviewed that they feel is important to give us the
I
facts.
can't really
Yeah,
hear
I
what she's
couldn't
saying.
hear what she said.
Can you try that again, Attorney Phelps? You're frozen, and we really couldn't hear you.
Let me go on my phone, if that would be permissible.
Point of information, Chair,
Yes.
Woman Gresham. As I understand it, the only exemption for an executive meeting is the deployment of security devices and/or personnel under the open meeting law. We weren't discussing any of that. So I'm just curious. I know, Mr. Collins, you were cautioning us, but I don't think we were discussing the deployment of security personnel and/or devices. We were just hearing the principal's testimony on a reflection as to the events of that day as it pertains to our policies.
Personnel devices, and procedures are what you can do in executive session. I didn't know what he was going to say. I was just worried that if he started to talk about deploying differently or things, that's something that should happen in executive session. And we didn't prepare the principal that, you know, he might, that's all I was worried about. I don't want to interfere with the meeting. I just don't want us to discuss in public something that we have every right to discuss, but it should be in a private session.
I understand that. I don't want to prevent Principal Lalim from providing his summation, though. I think that's what he was prepared to do. I don't know if Attorney Phelps is going to provide any further opinion.
I couldn't hear her.
I think,
If I may, is this any better?
yes.
A lot better.
Thank you. There is an investigation ongoing by the justices with regards to the entire matter, interviewing everyone who they feel is necessary to provide an accurate picture of what happened. And they have been asked to make recommendations in their report. So I just would caution that if, in fact, Principal Lalim would answer that, it is only from his perspective, and it is not based upon the fact that there are other people with information that he does not have presently regarding the unfolding of events.
Well, Madam Gresham, if I may,
If you may ask.
respectfully, Attorney Phelps, I think that Principal Lalim's recount of these events is of paramount importance. And whether or not the information, he may have it in the totality, I think that he was the individual on the ground leading. So I appreciate that the justices are going to do their investigation, but it does not exclude or preclude this body from, again, discussing it, understanding what happened from a policy efficacy standpoint. And furthermore, we received a memo on behalf of you and the superintendent that the justices were going to do this investigation. We didn't contract with these individuals to do this investigation. This was an internal school department matter that you folks decided to have these justices do this without really consultation with us. I respect that. We'll allow that to happen. It's already going to happen with or without us, and we'll hear back from it. But in the interim, we owe it to the constituents to understand in totality what is it that happened. Let the investigation do what it's going to do, because it has nothing to do with the criminal nature and or legality of what took place. So thank you again for rendering your opinion. We appreciate it, but I'd like to proceed, Chairwoman Gresham.
Yes.
May I just respond? I agree with you, Mr. Gonzalez. My only point was,
Agreeing with him, he could talk.
the question with regards to Mr. Lalime is that he can only answer from his perspective, and it would not substitute for the report judgment of the justices who were interviewing many people who come from different points in the building or with different expertise. So I did carefully say that if Mr. Lalime answers the question that you have posed to him, that he's answering based upon his own personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we can proceed with your question, and Mr. Lalime, if you could come. Thank you.
Hello again.
So again, if you could provide us a summation as to, your reflection of the events and what took place and your thoughts around it again. That's what we were asking. You kind of gave us the outline of what took place, but your reflections in terms of,
Yeah, you asked like what might be some of my takeaways.
Yeah.
After thinking about it for, the time that has transpired since. I think one of the big takeaways is that unfortunately, part of this is a societal issue where we have, people in our community running around with guns. That's a problem, especially when you have a large city with a lot of schools. The cross sections potentially increase. I think that's more of a societal issue than it is a school-based issue. But again, my biggest takeaways is that as it relates to the High School of Science and Technology, is that we were able to effectively execute a lockdown drill to ensure everybody's safety, given a situation that came out of nowhere, and you're talking a matter of seconds where a lot of decisions had to be made in real time, or a lot of actions had to happen in real time. And at the end of the day, no one was killed, right? Because there was a live firearm in a school. And again, I had a team of educators respond and acted in a way that put everybody's safety ahead of their own and to ensure everybody's safety. Based on things that were going on, based on my training and experience, I communicated with the right stakeholders, i.e. My Chief School Officer, Kim Wells, who then communicated to Adam Fenn. I think given the timeline, which I'm sure you all have records of, that you've seen yourself, again, I think the key word that I guess my big takeaway, if I were to summarize it in a word, it was execution. In a good sense, not kind of in the negative sense. So, I guess that's my biggest takeaway, is that we were able to execute effectively based on training, based on the education we had at our disposal. I know Adam was talking about it earlier. Every August we you spend time on talking about lockdown drills and what that looks like and what needs to happen. We have the annual drills facilitated by Adam and his department. Because of all of that, we were able to execute effectively. I guess that's my biggest takeaway, aside from the overbearing, I think, societal issue that we have, as a team, have to work together in better educating our youth so that they think twice before picking up firearms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lim. There's no other questions. I will move to the third item, which is two-way communication device policy.
Do you want me to update you on the installation? Is that what the,
Yes, where we are with that.
20 schools are done.
How many?
20.
20 schools are.
Yep. They're complete. They are working, they're doing one or two a week. They've run into some facilities issues, kind of as, different things the facilities have to work with them on, so they're kind of working with them hand in hand. But they're plugging away, all the equipment's in, and we've got 20 of them done. All of our major high schools at this point, I believe, are finished.
So, are they working? How is that?
Yep, they're installed, they're completely installed, and they're operational, so if they need to be used, they can be used. As they're installed, they're receiving the training from the company, which is, the radio company and the police that are there installing them, and then we're kind of backfilling that. Once they're done, we go in and double that up on how to use them, what you would use them for, how they function, but, knock on wood, hopefully we don't have to use them, but, they're in place. Hopefully by the next school year, we'll have them all in place at all the schools.
So the designated person has been trained? That the superintendent, I think, was designated?
Yeah, that would be our department, us and our department, and like I said, when they're going and installing them, the radio company and the police who are with them installing, are giving the office and the administration a rundown of how they work, when they should be used, and then we come in, after when we get notified, okay, we finished SciTech today, we then come in and talk to the staff and administration and double that up. We'll probably be conducting one or two tests from each of them a year, which is really just a call to a dispatch to make sure the frequencies are working. But they've all been tested. The locations were all tested during the trials to make sure that this was actually going to work, and they all worked crystal clear. So we should be good. And like I said, the company tells me that it's a pretty realistic goal that by next fall, beginning of school, all these will be in place.
And 20 schools are done?
20.
20. And how many more are we planning to do? Are we doing?
We're doing all the schools. Every main office will be getting a radio.
So do we know when we'll do more, or we got 10 more coming
They're
up?
doing one or two a week, and they should, like I said, there's some facilities issues that they have to work with facilities around their schedule as well to come in and make sure where their drilling is appropriate and what they're doing. So they're coordinating that with facilities, but they're doing one or two a week. They've been successful in that. So like I said, by the beginning of next school year is a very safe estimate that every office will have a radio.
Say that again?
The beginning of next school year?
Yeah.
It's a very safe estimate that every radio will be installed.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Gonzalez? No questions? All right, we'll move to the next, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to the next the next item on the agenda is the Yonder pouch policy. Do we have anyone here representing Yonder?
Kim, would you?
Good afternoon. We have implemented Yonder pouches at 4 of our major high schools, Central Renaissance, Conservatory of the Arts, and SciTech. So Central is in its second year of implementation, and Conservatory, Renaissance, and SciTech are in its first year of implementation. We are looking at possible expansion for next year based on schools' needs, but implementation started at the beginning of the year, and there's continuous revision and revamping of looking at the policies and making some determinations on the efficacy of how it's being used in the schools.
I know Commerce was one of them. Have they been done, or?
Mrs. Gresham, I don't unfortunately know the answer to that because I don't oversee Commerce.
They haven't been done?
Commerce is a ZEP school that we don't oversee the day-to-day of, so we could
Well,
get
they
you that
reached out.
information.
I
We could
thought
get
they
you that
reached out.
information. I just don't think Kim has that information. Kim doesn't oversee Commerce.
All right, Mr. Gonzalez.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Gresham. Ms. Wells, you alluded to the efficacy of these Yonder pouch, the Yonder pouch policy, what time are students given back these devices?
So they hold on to their devices, Mr. Gonzalez. The devices go inside the pouch. The pouch goes in the backpack. The students' devices are not taken from them.
Okay.
They are to go in the yonder pouches every day. So when they come in the mornings, we have administrators at the entryways. The students take out their yonder pouches. Telephone goes into the pouch. Pouch gets sealed. Pouch goes into the backpack. That's where it's supposed to stay throughout the course of the day. What I mean by efficacy is looking at, so yonder pouches can be broken, unfortunately, right? If you try hard enough, you can open them, you can break them, you can hit them against the wall, they can be broken. So it's the efficacy rating of it is great, it's a great deterrent, but it's not 100%. And so what we have to do constantly, if we see students in the hallways who've taken out their phones, either because they've broken it or they bring an extra phone and they're actually seen putting one in the backpack and then they have another phone that's someplace else, we take them and we address it that way. We replace pouches as we need to. We look at the locations of the magnets and where they're located around the buildings to make sure that they're in locations where at the end of the day when the children are unlocking them, it's right by the entry and the exit way. So that's what I'm talking about when we review policies with the yonder implementation people.
So is there, I know you have some principals here, is there skin in the game from the administration? Like, is this something that principals like, they're pro yonder pouch? And I asked this question against a very important backdrop against several other policies that we have in place that seem not to be getting the amount of compliance or efficacy that they were implemented with so many years ago. Case in point, the uniform policy. Been to a couple of our schools, empowerment and non-empowerment. Empowerment, they get to have a lot more autonomy. And this is something that, when it was first implemented, I was a part of the student body. The uniform policy was something that was very stringent. I was in middle school when this thing was implemented. Now you go into our high schools, and this is like, why do we have this policy in place? And I ask this question because as we set policy as a school committee, then my thing is, then what's the point? Right. Why not just get rid of the policy if school leaders are just saying, this is just another compliance add-on, now I have to police uniforms, now I have to police yonder, now I have to police X, Y, and Z. So again, that's that team and collaborative thing I'm talking about. Let's just come with all the facts at the table and say, this is working, this isn't working, let's revisit this and revisit that, because I feel like we just pass these things and we don't come back as a body and say, what's the efficacy of this? Is this even working? And is it even being, complied with today?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and I meet with the administrative team. They're here. We asked them to be here because I anticipated you were going to ask a few questions. I will tell you there's absolutely skin in the game. We have anecdotally seen significant changes, but I'm not going to talk for them. Yeah. I would love, if you're interested, to have them come up and talk with you about some of the changes that they've seen. I can tell you that there is very definitely skin in the game. And we've seen from conversations with the principals and conversations with the students at the schools when I'm there, they have talked to the point that it has required them to spend more time talking with each other when their phones are away, because so many of our children are so used to communicating on devices that the soft skills around interpersonal relationships and communications have increased. You walk into the cafeterias, you see children talking to each other, not on their phones. There's more attention being paid in classrooms because there's less time being spent on phones. Some of the behavioral things that you would see as a result of phones have decreased, but I wanna let them talk about it, because I think, to your point, it's not something we're directing them to do. This came about generically and through having, and authentically through having conversations with the principals about, is this something they wanted to do? And every principal who's here wanted to do this. So I can turn it over to them.
Can I speak, Kim? Can I speak?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Tad. Go ahead.
Hi. Hi, I'm Tad Togar's principal at Central High School. I'm sorry I'm not there. We have a play I have to go to. But our school could not operate without Yonder. Previously, before Yonder pouches, every kid had a phone in their hand, a phone in their pocket. They were on it, phone on a desk. We had no way of kind of alleviating that issue from the building. We had to do something. I mean, the problem was not getting better, so we had to do something. 2 years ago, we petitioned the school committee to do Yonder, and we have seen a 180-degree turnaround. As Mr. Wells said, the kids have Yonder pouches individually. They put the phone in the pouch, or they're supposed to put the phone in the pouch, put it away for the day, take it out at the end of the day. Now, the whole purpose of this Yonder pouch was to keep phones out of the classroom and out of the, and not in operation during the building. Do our kids put the phones in the pouches with fidelity? Some do, some don't. We do our best to search. But do you see phones in the hall? Rarely. And if you do, those phones are taken and they're given up willingly. In the past, that never happened. So I don't know how schools function without a cell phone policy, because it is such a challenge, and that if it's not addressed, it's going to continue to inhibit students from learning both academically and socially. So I think it's one of the best things that we have done at Central High School.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly, principal of the Conservatory of the Arts, and I'll echo what Tad said. The key for the Yonder pouches was to make the taking of the ones that kids bring out easier and manageable, and that's what has happened. We don't have them out in the class. The kids are paying more attention to each other and the teacher, and in the occasions when the teachers are informed, if a kid has a phone, call us and we will come get it. The administration comes and takes the phone. So it's definitely working a lot better for us. And I think it would be an example of what you were pointing out, looking at a policy which was often away and finding a way to do it better, and that is what the Yonder pouches has done for us. So it's certainly much better. You don't see them in the classrooms because kids know when they take them out, they're going to be taken from them. So I agree with everything that Tad just said.
Have you had any broken, any broken ones?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly the first week, we would have to give them new ones because they would be broken pretty often. They snap. So if you pull hard enough, or if you were to have some sort of tool to do it or smash it against the wall, then absolutely they can be broken. And the company, when they gave them to us, they told us exactly how it was going to happen because it happened in every other school that they put them in. So yes, they get broken, but we get new ones. We replace them, but anytime we find a broken one, like in a search, as Tad was pointing out, we would take that phone if their pouch isn't working. What we do is we have them shut the phone off, do it in front of us, lock it so that we know it worked, and then they put it in their bag and move on. So when we see that pouch isn't locking or is broken or is a little too loose, we take the phone for the day, we get them a new pouch. So yes, they absolutely do get broken.
All right, thank you.
Derek Wright, principal at Renaissance. Also echoing what Principal Tokarts and Principal Kelly said, at Renaissance, this is our first year implementing Yonder pouches. We have an administrator check the pouches every morning for every kid when they walk up the stairs. If kids forget their Yonder pouch or they've broken too many, they put them in an envelope and write their name on them for the day. And then we lock them up in my office, and at the end of the day, we have kids come pick them up from the office. Also, to echo, the teachers at the school are very excited about Yonder pouches, eliminating that power struggle of them confiscating the phones and waiting for us to come. The amount of phone referrals is way down. And as Principal Tokarts and Principal Kelly said, the kids know with the Yonder pouch, if we see their phone even hanging out of their back pocket, it's not supposed to be there. So that's really helped us this year with the cell phones.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes. Ms. Wells, if we could recognize Ms. Wells, Ms. Gresham.
Mrs. Wells, yes.
I know that the Evolve is coming forward, the Evolve technology. I think I heard Adam say that we've got this at Mr. Lalim's school. And I see that we've got it at SCOTA as well. is this something that will assist with the yonder?
So we're working on fine tuning the procedures. The yonder piece still has to happen in sort of concurrence with the Evolve system. I can tell you, I was at Conservatory the other day and I walked through the Evolve system with my phone. That doesn't beep.
Okay.
So we actually have to do both at the same time. But because we need to have administrators up there doing that, they're focusing, some are focusing their attention on the yonder piece and some are focusing their attention on the Evolve piece.
So they're still two separate things?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well. So what four schools, you said Renaissance, Central,
For what?
for the yonder pouches?
Renaissance, Central, Conservatory, and SciTech. And I can also tell you that at all of our alternative schools, though we don't use yonder pouches, those phones are collected every single day and held in the office.
All right. If you don't mind, can you find out about Commerce High School for us?
Absolutely.
Let us know about that one.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Again, on the backdrop of this, Ms. Gresham, I brought up our policies as a whole. Mr. Superintendent, the current uniform policy that we have in place as a district, as I remembered it when I last read it, I think it even has implications to shoe wear. So, I mean, what's the fidelity of that a decade later? Because I've seen mixed, anecdotal evidence to suggest otherwise.
As I go around to the buildings, I see most of the kids in compliance with the uniform policy. From my experience, I think the principals could speak to it better than I. They're there every day, but I think they have to work on it every day to ensure fidelity. The truth is, I think you were making a point earlier, we do have a lot of policies, and the principals are trying to manage a lot of policies simultaneously. That's why we thought with yonder pouches, we'd start with the schools that really felt that it would help them right now. So they had skin in the game, because they didn't have to jump into this the first year if they didn't want to implement that. So the principals who stepped forward were people who said, this can add value, and in addition to the other 150 policies we have, I'm going to put all this time to make sure we implement with fidelity. Most of the schools I go into, I see really good fidelity with the uniform policy. Is it 100% in every school every day? I would say it's not, but anytime we see it's not, then we'd follow up with the principal. The principals are there to execute the policy. They do have a lot on their plate, so I think you made a point earlier. Your point's well taken. The principals do have a lot on their plate.
And from a policy making body, that's what we want to drive to, Ms. Gresham. I mean, I don't think any of us want to overburden, especially if something's not making a difference. And that's why my question again, the efficacy of that policy, and is it still making the difference that it was intended to make in the schools?
I mean, that's always something we can go, take a look at. I do think a lot of people feel the uniform policies made a difference. Is it a lot of work for the principals to implement? It's an everyday thing. You're constantly reminding people, but I don't know if one or two of our principals.
I know
say something?
Mr. Tokar wanted, I'd like to recognize him. Principal Tokar?
All right, thank you, Ms. Gresham. So in my opinion, the uniform policy is one of the greatest things that the school committee's ever did, and this is why I think it is. We're dealing with teenagers, and teenagers need boundaries, right? So the uniform policy gives us a foundation that's safe. Now, the kids as teenagers are gonna push, and if they're pushing the uniform policy, it's our responsibility to hold them accountable to the best of our ability to make sure that they look professional and they're meeting the expectations of the building. But that is the line that they're, as a teenager trying to cross. So that to us is a safe way of acting out. My concern is that if there's no boundary there, what is the next thing they're going to push back on? So from a safety perspective, I think it's one of the best things the school committee's ever implemented. Additionally, historically, before the uniform policy, we used to have kids enter the building from other schools and nobody could recognize them because there's just so many kids. The uniform policy gives us the ability to say, this kid doesn't belong to Central. They're not wearing the uniform. And, we have to go through our steps. finally, I think it gives our kids the ability to not have to worry about the social pressures of dressing a certain way. Central has 300 ML students, 80 plus students in 80 plus students in poverty, free and reduced lunch. A lot of them can't afford the best clothes. So the uniform policy puts everybody on the even plane. So there's no concern about how I'm looking, what I'm wearing, and they can concentrate more on academics and, you know, their enjoyment of their high school years. So there's so many different important facets of the uniform policy. I think it's concerning that, you know, the conversation is going towards the reason why we have it in the first place.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Gonzalez, on the uniform policy? Any other questions?
No, I just think from a safety standpoint, I think it's important, Ms. Gresham, because I'm looking at our current policy right now, and again, I think that to Principal Tokar's point, I understand the purpose behind it, but I think we also want to be responsive and allow it to be reflective of the realities at the school. For example, I've got the policy in front of me. It says for shirts, no logos, insignias, pictures, or messages. Sweatshirts, the same thing. Zippered. I mean, there's so much specificity when it comes to the policy that I think it's being followed with generality, but it's not being followed to the letter of the policy. And that's why I'm saying again that that's something that we should look at if we need to adjust it. You know, because why have a policy put in place that's not being fully complied with for the sake of saying, well, it sets the bench and we'll try our best to get there.
Okay, all right. So maybe that's something that we can follow up on with respect to safety, the uniform policy.
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right, no other questions? We'll move to the fifth item on the agenda, which is student social media policy. Superintendent Warwick.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
So we have social media guidelines that are intended to be directed toward schools and school organizations and student clubs. The guidelines ensure that the district is made aware of any social media account that a school may have, such as a school's Facebook page or a student organization's Instagram account. So the guidelines for social media are geared towards that. And how we monitor that is we ask that schools fill out a registration form when they seek to start a new social media account so that our office can keep track of all the Springfield Public Schools social media accounts, that a staff person at the school is made responsible for that page, for creating the account and ensuring that any students that are pictured on it, for example, have signed media releases. The social media guidelines also address that as a Springfield Public Schools employee, no matter what position you hold, if you have a social media account, you are still representing Springfield Public Schools even in your private, personal use of social media. So those are the parameters of the social media guidelines.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Zell, I appreciate this. So you've provided the policy as it pertains to personnel, social media channels by schools, departments, groups, and programs, but currently, Superintendent, there is no social media policy for students, individual students.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So is there a way that we could have a social media policy guideline for students? Is that something that,
If I could, Mrs. Gresham, I'd love to get our attorney to weigh in on that.
all right.
Attorney Phelps?
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Gresham. And I apologize in advance for my voice. I am struggling with a cold and elements of the flu. We have a variety of different policies in effect to utilize with regards to students who abuse their own social media accounts, and when it comes and spills into the school. We have a cyberbullying policy. We have the code of conduct. We have a sexual harassment or Title IX policy. We have a Title VI anti-discrimination policy. And we have an acceptable use policy for students in using Springfield Public Schools laptops and other technology. So those are the variety of tools that, should there be something on social media that causes a substantial disturbance in the school, that principals can use those tools for effective discipline. But again, the Supreme Court in 2021, in its Mahoney decision, indicated that the schools don't have the same leeway to limit off-campus speech as they do to on-campus speech. And therefore, in order for off-campus speech to be disciplined or regulated by a school, it has to have caused a substantial disruption within the school building. So there are policies. There is none labeled specifically as a social media policy applying to students, but there is a variety of tools in a tool bag for building administrators to utilize, and they in fact do utilize those policies.
Is there a way that we can look at that, to have such a policy for students regarding social media?
Certainly, Mrs. Gresham, I assume that's a question to me?
Yes.
Thank you. You can always look at something, and happy to do so. The rub that you have is that the social media accounts, most of which are transmitted by a phone, are phones that don't belong to the majority of our students. They are the parents' phones. If you're under the age of 18, to my knowledge, you cannot open up and purchase a phone and have an account. So you're regulating a parent. There would be an attempt to regulate a parent's phone and the speech that comes out of the parent's phone. So there's all sorts of First Amendment issues. Districts across the nation have struggled with this. I'm a member of a National School Attorneys Association. Spent some time in anticipation of today's meeting looking at what other districts across the country do. And it's very difficult to write a policy that doesn't just track the fact that schools can restrict, limit, regulate speech within the building, but they cannot regulate speech that occurs outside the building unless it comes into the building through a substantial disruption. That's the law that the Supreme Court established in 2021.
All right. So is there a way we can look at one with respect to in the building, in the school building? Attorney Phelps?
Sure. As I think there are presently 5 different policies in effect that address behavior on social media that does cause a substantial disruption within the building. But it's broken out based upon whether it's a sexual harassment, whether it's cyberbullying, whether what's occurring is based in race or ethnicity, and if it's being done on our technology or not. So as I indicated, I think there's a variety of different methods that's being utilized currently. There's no one-stop shopping because the speech that is being sought to be regulated within the school building varies. It's not a one type of speech. It could be either sexual, racial, cyberbullying, harassment.
All right, okay. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Gonzalez?
Not at this time.
All right. All right. If there's no more questions, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second. This ends our subcommittee meeting. Thank you.